Good morning, everybody. This is AKA Heather Joy. You guys just boarded the lifeboat. Oh, let me pull up the comments here. Let's see. Okay. Ah, sleep was just way too more important than my hair today, so you get the hat. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing well. Before I get started, let me just run through the rules really quickly. First of all, please uh, refrain from politics in the chat and the comment section. The second one, where this isn't a religious channel. It's fine to offer to pray for someone else or to say things like, "I couldn't have found my sobriety without my faith." But if you wander over into the territory where you're telling someone that your God is better than theirs, or you're telling them why they're going to hell, that's right out. The third one, please refrain from cursing in the comment section and the live chat. As Tommy always says, if you can't control your mouth, then you can't control your life. And the fourth one, there's absolutely no place on this boat for mean people. I mean, we've got all the room in the world for recovering addicts, but if you're going to be mean, you're just going to get kicked off. That's all there is to it. I will personally make you walk the plank. Anyway, I would also like to make just a few requests. First of all, that you exit out of the chat for a moment. Hit that like button for me. If you like this and you can think of someone this might help, please share it. And if you haven't subscribed, well, why not? Come on. Still fighting this stupid chest cold. And then I'm hot and then I'm cold. And right now, yeah, I'm hot. Anyway, let me see who is here. We've got Charlie, of course. Tina, well, there's a new name I haven't seen. Welcome, Tina. I don't know if you're new or if you have just been gone for a while, but I'm glad you're here. We've got Ethan and Annette, John Doe, full of hope, and full of hope that you being blocked on the Chase the Heat channel, that's got to be a mistake. I cannot ever see you doing anything that would get you blocked on a channel. Just, uh-uh. We're gonna have to look into that. That just doesn't sound right. And then let's see, Scoopy's here and Kelly. Welcome. That's another name that if I have seen it, I don't remember it. So I'm glad you're here. Let's see if I missed anyone else. Lemmy's here. And let's see. Looks like that's about it for the moment. I'm really glad you guys are all here. Oh, Patrick is here. I missed you. I apologize, Patrick. Anyway, I'm glad you guys are here. I wanted to talk today about emotional support animals. That's just a big deal in my life. Honestly, I have had animals my entire life. I grew up on a farm. We always had we were the farm that we had. It was mostly just growing alfalfa, corn, barley. Sometimes we'd do straw. Sometimes I don't know, just things like that. But we were farming. We weren't animal farming, but we would have cattle and horses to eat. Well, we wouldn't eat the horses, but there'd be a few cattle that we could eat, or sheep, or if there were some bummer lambs, we would take the lambs, and we used to actually have this bummer lamb that we raised, and we bottle fed it, and it grew up, and we were just fattening it up, and I became so attached to it, and it thought it was a pet, and it had its own little pen. But I can remember coming home from school. The bus would drop us off at the end of the dirt road, on our farm, and we'd walk home. And as soon as that sheep would see us, it would jump out of the pen and dash down, just like it was, like it was your pet dog. It would come and greet us, and it'd jump around. It was so sweet, and it would sit on the front porch and wait for us to come out and play with it. I've always had animals. Mostly, I've had lots of cats. But they've always been such a big part of my life, and they they do me so much good. And in 2020, when the pandemic happened, my husband and I decided, well, let's start raising chickens. We're in a rural area, we have a place to do it. Let's do it. And oh boy, we have chickens. Do we ever have chickens? And I that's one animal I hadn't grown up with, but I took right to it. I love those little things. They are so sweet. I tell you, a lot of people don't think that chickens are very intelligent or that they're really worth anything, but I beg to differ. They are extremely intelligent, and they take they have to be in a flock, um, especially when they're babies. They can't survive unless they're in a flock, especially when they're little. They depend on each other, and they have their own way of governing themselves. They're a really easy thing to do most of the time. But those chickens mean so much to me. And I have we have the all of our meat birds and our egg laying hens out at the farm. But then I have some special ones, my ornamental chickens that are half size, and they're just mostly there for me, to enjoy, and they mean so much to me. And I'm able to keep them at the house, in the back. And my husband and I, where we travel a lot to travel to all these different races, it was becoming a big problem trying to find people to come over while we were away all the time to take care of them. And it was just becoming a big problem. And there was someone, I had a friend that had wanted the type of ornamental chickens that I had. And so we kind of did a trial, and I gave them to their family. And oh boy, that was a big mistake. I got so depressed. I did not realize how much good they were doing me. They, just to have these sweet little companions that want to sit on your lap, and they want to follow you around. And they just do you so much good. And I finally I had to go back to her, and I felt so bad, but I said I can't get by without them, and I had to take them back. They really mean so much to me. And where we live, we have an HSA, and they never we'd had them, my little ornamental ones, here at the house. We got them fenced in and everything in our backyard, not a big deal. But and we had them for 2 years, never had a complaint, nothing. Everybody loved it because I was always giving people eggs, and it wasn't a problem until somebody, a Karen couple, bought a few of the places near here to rent out, and oh boy, they created all kinds of issues. So I actually, and this sounds crazy, and people laugh at me, but there are my three most favorite little girls, my little silkies, are actually registered as emotional support chickens. But they do me so much good. And I know I'm not the only one out there who has animals and depends on animals for for companionship, and they just do so much for us. And I wanted to talk about that today. It's the animals are really important, and I feel bad for people that want them but aren't allowed to keep them. Yeah, that was just sad. And I've noticed too that Utah, for some reason, isn't very friendly to a lot of pet owners. And I didn't really realize that that was a thing. Being in a rural area, it's not really that big of a deal out here. But so many people leaving certain states and moving into Utah and Idaho and Texas and Tennessee. And when they move, they want to bring their animals with them. And everybody that's come to Utah complains that Utah is horrible about allowing animals. And I don't know why that is, but I'm just grateful that I live where I do, and that I've always got my little buddies around me. Anyway, let me explain exactly what is an emotional support animal. I know that I'm sure all of you have seen, when you go to the store or anywhere in public, you're going to see service animals and they will have those vests on, and you're not allowed to touch them because they're either being trained or they are trained and they are in service. They are trained to perform something that their owners can't do for themselves. And that could be, if someone is deaf, alerting them to different things, if they're blind, guiding them, or for people that have disabilities that impact them emotionally. um, I was reading about this lady. She's in the Marines, and she is a military a policewoman, and she really really struggles with chronic anxiety. And one day she went into a pet store and she met this parrot. I can't remember what type of parrot it was, but she just had this instant connection with it. And anyway, she had this instant connection with it, and she named it Zaboomafoo. I don't. Do you guys remember that show? Do you remember Zabu, that little lemur? So cute. But she had this instant connection with this little guy, and he is able to sense when her heart rate starts to jump up because she really at times struggles with horrible anxiety. I mean, debilitating anxiety. And this little guy just knows what to do, and he will start, nuzzling up against her with his little head, and he'll do these sweet little whistles, and he'll just do things to calm her down. And she is able, she has this guy registered as an emotional support animal, but also it's actually, in her case, it's a service animal too. Because of the things that it can do to help her cope so that she can go out in public and do her shopping and take care of things. She can't do it without this little guy. And I don't know, I don't think she's in the Marines anymore. I think that's the thing, just because she was struggling so badly with her anxiety. But there is a slight difference. Service animals are trained to do something that their owners can't do. Emotional support animals are basically just they're companions. They give you emotional support. It was really difficult to find a good definition of what that is. But they can do several things. Relieve loneliness. They can help with depression, with anxiety, different mental health issues, phobias, things like that. Um, but they they aren't just limited to dogs at all. And I've never been on a flight where there's been anything but maybe a cat in a little carrier, and somewhat occasionally people have had little dogs sitting on their laps. But I understand that sometimes people will take like their miniature ponies with them, and some really rather crazy things. I even heard there was a peacock on board a flight once, and that would not be fun. Peacocks are amazing and they're beautiful, but have you heard the noise that they make? Oh boy, it's my brother. The neighbor in his backyard down in Phoenix has several peacocks, and they make the most horrible noise in the middle of the night, and you just want to get up and get the shotgun almost because of the horrible noise they make. Anyway, but they definitely aren't limited to just dogs or cats. Um, yeah, there are a few criteria if you want to have them registered as emotional support animals. And I didn't really go too far into that because it varies from state to state what the criteria are to actually have them registered. But the two biggest ones are that they cannot be a nuisance in public, and that they alleviate the symptoms, that their owners have, the emotional or the mental disorders that they have to be able to help alleviate that. And I was looking up statistics, and the only one I could really find, the newest one I could find, was as of May 2020, there were over, let's see, 200,000 animals that were registered as emotional support animals. And you can take them in public. They can accompany you on public transport, on flights. But there are rules. I know in the New York subways, for instance, the dogs have to be contained inside a bag, I believe. And I've seen some really funny pictures of people with huskies crammed into these bags. But I get it though. I get it. I don't know what I would do without my little buddies. Honestly, they bring me so much comfort and so much support at times. I know when I was really struggling when I first was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and I was in so much pain all the time, my mother had this little dog Georgie, and she was part Shih Tzu and part Yorkie. And she spent half of her time here at my house because my mother lives just down the street from me. And I would go, when I was hurting, that sweet little girl would just sit in my lap, and it would just it honestly helped. It helped you to deal with the pain. And when if I was really, going through a bout of depression, the same thing. I'd go get that little dog, and unfortunately, last year my mother had to put her down, darn it. But what a sweet little thing she was. I get it. I understand why people need them. They really do help. But do they do more than just simply make you happy? Oh yeah, they do. I've got some statistics here for you. um, Let me just say, first of all, though, that um, there is a growing trend where people are starting to misuse um, um, you know, getting their pet um, registered as an emotional support animal, and that's too bad. That makes me very angry because people that don't need them and are abusing it, just because they want a dog, that they don't need it. If they live like I know that I have actually family members that I have seen do this. They were in college and were living in student housing, in couples housing, and have a dog that is very noisy. And I know that her neighbors were, I'm sure they were furious with that dog barking all day while they were in class. That was just, sometimes it's not always a good thing. And that makes me upset because it's going to ruin it for the people that really do need them. But what do you do anyway? uh, let's see. Emotional support animals are not covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act, the way that service animals are. um, let's see, what did I put here? I'm trying to read my notes. Let's see, I already covered that, so let me continue here. Let's see. Okay, I've got a list of things that they can actually do for you. They can ease worry. They can lessen anxiety. They can really help you if you're in a panic attack, full blown panic attack. Having a little guy crawl into your lap that you can pet does so much for you. They can help with signs and symptoms of depression. They're really good just for companionship. And that companionship, that's really important. I believe in people that have depression because especially when you're getting into some major clinical depression, when you start to have those thoughts of removing yourself from life. I believe they're really important then, and they give you a reason to keep going, because you don't want to leave. If you're really attached to your pet, you don't want to leave them behind. It gives you a reason to keep going. It gives you a reason to get up every morning because you need to take care of them and feed them and walk them and all of that. So I really think they're important, and I have seen in many cases where people's pets have really been absolute lifesavers for them. They're always a source of unconditional love. Always, they don't care what you look like. or what you do for a living, or your status, or any of that. They just, if you love them and you take good care, and they're going to love you back, and that's really important. They can provide comfort. um, they give you a sense of stability. I've even seen they can lower your blood pressure. And cats especially are amazing for this. And I have seen where doctors will actually recommend, if what like if oncologists, when they diagnose a child with life-threatening cancer, if the family doesn't have a cat, and no one is allergic to the cat, the doctor will a lot of doctors will suggest that they get a cat, because cats purr. The the frequency that they purr at is the same frequency that our cells vibrate at when they are healing. So there's so many studies that have shown that petting an animal has an instant reaction, and it lowers your blood pressure, it lowers your anxiety. There people, veterans that are suffering from PTSD symptoms, animals can really help them to deal with that, and provide them comfort. And in general, it just makes you happier. If you're a pet person, but how does that do that? Well, let me explain. Um, I was looking at all these different studies, and basically all of them showed the same thing: that petting an animal, like I said before, will lower your blood pressure, and it will lower your stress levels. Uh, when you well, and why it does this is because petting an animal releases three of the most powerful feel good chemicals that you have in your brain, and that would be serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin. And they make you feel good, and they are very powerful chemicals. If you're stressed, if you're under a lot of stress, your sympathetic nervous system is activated, and it puts you into fight or flight. We talked about that all yesterday, just yesterday. uh, but it activates your sympathetic nervous system. And when you are triggered like that, and that it, and your sympathetic nervous system is triggered like that, petting an animal gives you the boost of those three chemicals, and it calms your sympathetic nervous system down, and it helps keep you in parasympathetic. It helps you keep your parasympathetic nervous system going. And the difference, there's definitely a difference. The sympathetic nervous system, this is the way that I remember it, is, I think of sympathy. If you're going through stress, and your nervous system is trying to sympathize with you, it's going to try to help you. It's going to prepare you for whatever is coming. I hope that makes sense. But parasympathetic, the word para means alongside, and that's kind of how I remember it. That you want your parasympathetic nervous system to calm you down, to just be there with you. I know it's kind of silly, but that's kind of the way I remember the differences in my head. But it will, petting animals will help keep you in that parasympathetic nervous system state. And that is more the rest and digest. Um, when you're calm and you're rested, and the animals actually do that, and I thought that was really cool. Um, having your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight triggered for extended periods, has some definite negative effects on you. Of course, there's the negative mental effects. You don't have the ability to focus as well. You are experiencing stress. A lot of times you'll end up with a lot of social isolation, or a lack of motivation. If you're in that fight or flight for a long time, you get those. And then not to mention all of the health problems that it can create. Um, So, animals are just so helpful. They provide an immediate distraction. If you're in a panic attack, that it's going to help ground you, and it's a great distraction. And it will shift your focus if you're having experiencing the ants, those obtrusive negative thoughts. It can help you shift your focus off of them and onto the animal. uh, that can animals can also really boost your self-worth, because it gives you a drive, it gives you a purpose. And they're kind of like an anchor for you as well, I think. And then I was thinking too. When I was working in the hospital, um, there was in the psych ward. Sometimes they would bring in these animals for animal assisted therapy, and everybody loved the days. When they would bring a dog or a cat or one day somebody brought in, what are those things? Bearded dragons. Yeah, they brought in a bearded dragon, but everybody just loved that because, the animal has to be able to put up with multiple people around it and petting it. If the animals are okay to do that, then I think it's really beneficial. But they have. I was looking at some studies last night too. They were showing that dogs used in cognitive behavioral therapy really help when you're in therapy. A lot of times you're having to discuss things from your past that are very stressful when you're talking about them and remembering them, and you end up with that burst of cortisol, that burst of adrenaline, all those stress hormones. And having a dog during therapy really helps keep those things calmed down. And it also, um, they have seen in studies that with the same thing with the cognitive behavioral therapy and the things that the therapist asks the patient to do, they are much more compliant, and they follow through and they do the things that they are asked to try to get themselves better when pets are involved. I love that. My grandmother in Australia, she passed away about 3 years ago now, but she was in a nursing home for the last little while, and they would frequently bring in dogs and cats that would just sit with the seniors, just sit in their lap, and they loved it. It just it did them so much good. And she wasn't really much of an animal person, a pet person, but she always enjoyed that. It always helped her, with the stress and the loneliness that she felt, because a lot of her family is over here. Anyway, um, I was looking at a study last night too. It was from 2010, and what they did is there was a group of people that took a bunch of stray dogs, and they took care of them first. They took them to the vet, made sure they were healthy, and, they were spayed and neutered, and they were given all their vaccinations and things. And then they were put into places where they could provide emotional support. And I don't remember off the top of my head how long. Oh, wait, no, yes, I do. It was a year. It was a year long. And what they did before they started the study, they tested some biomarkers in the people that were involved, and they checked their oxytocin levels, their cortisol levels, and their alpha amylase levels. Alpha amylase is something. Amylase is in your saliva. It helps to break your food down. Um, but if you find a lot of high levels of alpha amylase in your saliva, it indicates high levels of stress. The oxytocin is that wonderful feel good chemical, that you get when you hug someone. And then the cortisol level, of course, is that primary stress hormone. But they were testing all of those, and at the end of the year, after these people had adopted these animals and had them, they retested those biomarkers, and what they found were, increased levels of oxytocin uh, all the time, lower cortisol levels, in general, and the same thing, the lower levels of that alpha amylase in their saliva. And they also reported a lot less anxiety, and a lot less loneliness. And I love that. I love that. Um, I I know I mentioned this before, but I think that emotional support animals are so important. You know, if you aren't allergic to an animal and you are allowed to keep them where you live, you know, and you suffer from deep depression, I really do recommend a pet of some kind, because when you do, I don't know, with me, I routinely go through periods of deep depression. It's part of the brain injury that I had when I was a kid, and it's also the fact that it runs in my family on both sides. And when you are when you get into very deep depression and you're in so much pain and it just seems like it's going on forever and it's never going to end, you do start to have those thoughts of taking yourself off the earth. And honestly, having a pet with you can prevent that. And I have a very dear sister. Well, she's not my sister, but she should be. But she's actually my husband's cousin, and I know she wouldn't mind me mentioning her. But she has fibromyalgia very badly because of she was in the foster care system as a child before she was adopted, and she experienced a lot of I'll just say SA. You guys know what that means. So life for her is definitely challenging. She has a lot of somebody keeps sorry, hang on just a second. Somebody keeps trying to get my attention here. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, they're just gonna have to wait. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, yeah. She really struggles with her mental health at times, and she does have a great deal of pain. And you know, it's just been so long that her body has been under constant stress that you know she's got a definite autoimmune disease going on, and she really does have a hard time. And there was a point where she had to move from the home she was living in, and she had to move into some a different place. And where she was moving, they weren't going to allow her to keep her cats. And so that's how, you know, that gray cat, that Russian blue cat that I have, Misha, that's where he came from. Is I took him from her, and oh, I'm so glad I have him. But you know, she had to give up all of her cats. She had three, and they meant so much to her, and she didn't want to do it, but she just, because of her health complications and all of these issues, she couldn't afford to live any longer where she was, and because she couldn't work full time any longer. And it scared me because I knew what they did for her. And but she had no choice. She had to move out, and you know, she made the move. And that first year that she was in her new place, was I was terrified for her because she was deeply depressed, and she really struggled. And a different company took over all of they're like, I guess they're condos. A different company took it over, and they changed the rules where she was allowed to have one pet again. And she went and found this the most darling little black kitten I've ever seen, and she calls him Toby. He is so cute. But honestly, guys, that little kitten saved her life. And I'm dead serious. It kept her going until she was able to get on some better medication and get some better help. And that little guy honestly has saved her life. And I've experienced that myself, and I'm sure I'm not the only one here on the boat that you know has animals that they depend on, and the animals depend on them. And, you know, it's I honestly believe that you know they're just a sweet helping hand. They are a gift from God, in my opinion. They are a gift, and I just love them. I don't know what I would do without them. You guys, I apologize. I'm not feeling well right now, and I am going to just say hi to everybody, get in the chat, and then I'm going to duck out because I really need to go get a little more sleep. I'm struggling. I need to come back on tonight. So I apologize for making this short, but I got to take care of me too. So I just want to say hi, Charlie and Scooby and Full of Hope and Kelly and Attic. Scooby, did I say Scooby? I wanted to see if anyone else popped in here that Full of Hope says I'm preaching to the choir. I thought so. I thought so. I feel so bad for people that are allergic to animals or that cannot keep them where they live. That's just it's tragic. It's not right, and that's where if you let's see. John says his dog has helped him with his anger issues. That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, Alf showed up. Hey, Alf. You can't eat any of the boat's cats. Okay, they just can't do it. Won't let you. Sorry. And all of you guys that weren't alive in the 80s have no clue who Alf is. Let's see. I don't see anyone else that I haven't already. Oh, wait, JT. Yeah, JT popped in. Awesome. I hope everybody is doing well. Oh, and Random Toaster came in. Awesome. Let's see. Don't want to miss anybody, but oh, Dennison came in. Awesome. I hope. And Lemmy, did I mention you, Lemmy? And Blake? I can't remember. My brain is mush today. I just don't feel well. But I hope everybody's doing well. I always tell you guys this every time, but I will not stop. I pray for every single one of you. I do. Worry about you guys. This is just an incredible community, and I'm really glad that I discovered the boat and that I get to be a part of this. And really glad you guys, come all the time and hang out and just support each other. This is a beautiful thing. If you guys are struggling, please reach out to the people on your list. If you don't have your list, there is the Safe Harbor on Facebook that can help. But please get your 5. There sometimes we experience. Everybody's going to have emergencies. Everybody's going to have bad days when thoughts and cravings might creep up. Stay on guard and talk it through. Move it from that part of your brain that's pure emotion to the front part of your brain where you're rational and you can think things through. The best way to do that is to talk it out or write it down in your journal, honestly. But love you guys. Hang in there, and I believe I will be seeing you guys again this evening. So I'll talk to you later. Thanks, guys.